The nuclear shadow. Humanity's most dangerous invention that changed the face of the world forever. Imagine a colossal, destructive power so immense it could wipe out entire cities in the blink of an eye, reshaping our world in unimaginable ways, leaving behind devastation that stretches for decades and centuries. This isn't a natural force. Rather, it's the result of the human mind's transgressions and its prowess in both creation and destruction. We're talking about the nuclear bomb, an invention that not only altered the course of warfare, but redefined the very concept of global peace and security, casting a long, unsettling shadow over all of humanity. A shadow that continues to challenge our consciences to this very day. From the moment of its horrific birth, this destructive force imposed itself as an inescapable reality, threatening mass destruction while simultaneously enforcing a strange and fragile form of peace reliant on mutual fear. The quest for absolute power, roots of the nuclear idea. Years before the advent of the nuclear bomb, the idea of harnessing the power of the atom was merely a scientific dream that captivated the minds of the most prominent physicists and chemists. The concept of releasing the enormous energy latent in the smallest components of matter seemed unattainable, confined to the pages of science fiction. But in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, discoveries began to unfold at a rapid pace. From the discovery of radioactivity by Henri Becquerel to Albert Einstein's theory of relativity, which revealed the relationship between mass and energy in the equation E=mc², culminating in the discovery of nuclear fission in 1938 by Otto Hahn and Fritz Strassmann. Scientists quickly realized that nuclear fission, where the nucleus of a heavy atom splits into two lighter nuclei with the release of a tremendous amount of energy, could lead to a chain reaction if controlled. This knowledge was the spark that ignited a frantic global scientific and technological race, especially with the escalating intensity of World War II. The greatest fear was that the Nazi regime would develop such a weapon first. These concerns prompted Albert Einstein and Leo Szilard to send a famous letter to U.S. President Franklin Roosevelt in 1939, warning of the possibility of an atomic bomb and urging immediate action. The Manhattan Project, a race against time towards the unknown. In the crucible of World War II, growing fears of a secret arms race and unprecedented scientific advancements accelerated the push towards realizing this terrifying dream. This period witnessed the birth of the Manhattan Project, a massive, secret undertaking unparalleled in the history of science and engineering. This project, which began in 1942 under the leadership of the U.S. Army and physicist Robert Oppenheimer, brought together some of the brightest scientific minds in the world. From nuclear physicists to chemical engineers and mathematicians, thousands of individuals gathered at secret sites such as Los Alamos, New Mexico, Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and Hanford, Washington, working tirelessly, often unaware of the true scope or ultimate goal of their individual contributions. Their objective was clear and terrifying: to unlock the secrets of the atom to create an unparalleled weapon, a weapon that could decide the fate of the war. The challenges were immense, and knowledge was in its infancy, but the pressure of time and the fear of being outpaced by others pushed scientists to transcend the known boundaries of physics and chemistry. Challenges included developing methods for separating rare uranium isotopes, producing sufficient quantities of plutonium, and designing the mechanism that would make atoms split at a critical moment to cause an explosion. On July 16, 1945, in the New Mexico desert, the Manhattan Project conducted the first test of an atomic bomb, codenamed Trinity. The explosion was enormous and terrifying, illuminating the night sky with a light stronger than 1,000 suns, confirming to the world and to its participants that a new and dreadful power had been born. The first shock. Hiroshima and Nagasaki, a world changed forever. A few weeks after the Trinity test, and with Japan's refusal of unconditional surrender, U.S. President Harry Truman made a historic and controversial decision to use the new weapon to end the war. On August 6, 1945, the world witnessed the dawn of the atomic age in the most horrific way imaginable. The American aircraft Enola Gay dropped the uranium bomb, dubbed Little Boy, on the Japanese city of Hiroshima. The city vaporized in a blinding flash, its center turning to ash, and the blast wave caused widespread destruction for kilometers. It was a turning point in human history, changing the concepts of war and peace forever. Just 3 days later, on August 9, the plutonium bomb Fat Man was dropped on the city of Nagasaki, causing similar devastation. These were not just bombs, they were destroyers in every sense of the word. The destruction was horrific and unprecedented, not limited to the enormous explosion and the shockwave that leveled buildings in moments, nor to the intense heat that surpassed the surface temperature of the sun and vaporized all forms of life in a wide radius. Rather, it extended to the hidden and destructive effect, radiation. This unknown specter left an indelible scar, not only on the survivors who suffered from horrific diseases for years, but on the conscience of all humanity. Hundreds of thousands died instantly or slowly from injuries, burns, and radiation poisoning. The scale of human and material destruction was unimaginable, a scene embodying the peak of terror that can be created by human hands, and awakening the world to the fact that humanity had now discovered a way to destroy itself. The Cold War, living under the nuclear sword of Damocles. The end of World War II did not bring an end to the nuclear threat. On the contrary, it inaugurated a new era of global tension and ideological polarization known as the Cold War. During this period, two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union, faced off in a terrifying confrontation, armed with increasingly powerful and complex nuclear arsenals. It was not a conventional war in the accepted sense, but rather a proxy war, a propaganda war, and a psychological war. Yet it was always under the threat of a real nuclear nightmare. A terrifying concept known as mutually assured destruction, MAD, emerged. A chilling paradox where peace was maintained not by peace itself, but by the threat of total annihilation. The idea was simple and frightening. Any nuclear attack by one side would inevitably lead to a retaliatory nuclear strike that would completely destroy both parties. This terrifying balance of fear prevented direct confrontation, but it trapped the world under this hanging sword, on the brink of an abyss, awaiting any spark that could ignite a conflict that would end everything. Major crises that almost sparked the fuse. Berlin blockade, 1948 to 1949. The first major confrontation of the Cold War, where the Soviet Union imposed a blockade on West Berlin, prompting the US and its allies to establish a massive airlift to supply the city. Korean War, 1950 to 1953. A proxy conflict between the two superpowers where nuclear threats loomed. Cuban Missile Crisis, 1962. This crisis was the most dangerous point of the Cold War. When the United States discovered that the Soviet Union was installing nuclear missiles in Cuba, the world almost plunged into an all-out nuclear war. The crisis lasted 13 days of intense tension and mutual threats before it was resolved diplomatically, demonstrating how close humanity came to annihilation. False alarms. Over the years, there have been numerous errors in early warning systems, either due to equipment malfunctions or misinterpretations of data. In one such incident in 1983, the Soviet early warning system believed the United States had launched a nuclear attack. However, the decision of a Soviet officer named Stanislav Petrov not to report the situation to high command because he believed it was a false alarm saved the world from a certain catastrophe. Mechanisms of destruction. The power within the atom. But what gives these weapons such unparalleled destructive power, surpassing any conventional explosives humanity has ever known? The secret lies at the heart of the atom itself, and in two primary nuclear processes: nuclear fission and nuclear fusion. Nuclear fission, atomic bomb, A-bomb. In a fission bomb, the nuclei of heavy, unstable atoms like uranium-235 or plutonium-239 are split. When neutrons collide with the nucleus of these atoms, they split and release additional neutrons, which, in turn, collide with other atoms, leading to a very rapid chain reaction. This reaction releases an enormous amount of energy in a fraction of a second, forming the initial explosion. This is the technology used in the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombs. Nuclear fusion, hydrogen bomb, thermonuclear fusion, H-bomb. Nuclear fusion bombs are far more advanced and powerful than fission bombs. They exploit the reverse process of fission, where the nuclei of light atoms such as hydrogen isotopes, deuterium and tritium, are fused together. This process requires extremely high temperatures and pressures to initiate. Therefore, a small fission bomb is used as a trigger to create the conditions required for fusion. Once fusion begins, it releases immense energy, thousands of times greater than that of fission bombs, making them the most powerful weapons ever created by humanity. The destructive effects of a nuclear explosion. Regardless of the type of bomb, a nuclear explosion releases three main waves of destruction. Blast wave causes immense pressure that destroys buildings and knocks people down, accompanied by violent winds exceeding the speed of sound. Thermal radiation, a wave of intense heat and light that can cause instant third-degree burns miles away, vaporize objects at ground zero, and ignite widespread fires. Nuclear radiation, divided into initial radiation, occurring at the moment of explosion, and residual radiation, fallout. Initial radiation is immediately lethal, while fallout, which consists of radioactive particles that drift into the atmosphere and later fall to the ground, contaminates the environment and causes deadly long-term illnesses such as cancer and birth defects. These three effects combine to form a horrifying scenario beyond any human comprehension, transforming vast areas into desolate, uninhabitable lands. After the catastrophe, the specter of nuclear winter and long-term consequences. If, God forbid, a widespread nuclear exchange were to occur between major powers, the immediate destruction would be unimaginable. But the nightmare would not end there. It would be followed by a catastrophic global scenario known as nuclear winter. This scientific concept indicates that the explosion of a large number of nuclear warheads would lead to the ascent of massive quantities of smoke, soot, and dust from burning cities and raging forests into the upper layers of the atmosphere. This soot would block sunlight, leading to a sharp and sudden drop in temperatures across the entire planet, plunging the Earth into a prolonged period of darkness and extreme cold. Ecosystems would be disrupted on a wide scale, and agricultural crops would die due to the cold and lack of sunlight, leading to countless global famines and widespread ecological collapse. Furthermore, residual nuclear radiation, nuclear fallout, would contaminate land, water, and air, rendering vast areas of the planet uninhabitable for centuries, leaving behind a scarred and silent world barely bearing the imprints of human life. Even areas far from direct explosions would suffer from these catastrophic climatic and radioactive effects. The way forward: disarmament, control, and hope for a threat-free world. Despite the terrifying power of these weapons that threaten to end human existence, humanity has also shown a remarkable capacity for diplomacy and cooperation. The shock of Hiroshima and Nagasaki and the escalating tension during the Cold War led to intensive international efforts to control nuclear weapons and reduce their risks. International treaties. Important international treaties were signed, such as the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, NPT, in 1968, which is considered the cornerstone of the global non-proliferation regime. This treaty aims for three main objectives: preventing the spread of nuclear weapons, nuclear disarmament, and promoting the peaceful uses of nuclear energy. Other treaties were also signed, such as the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, CTBT, which prohibits all nuclear explosions for any purpose whatsoever. Monitoring organizations. Organizations like the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, play a vital role in monitoring countries' nuclear activities to ensure they are not used for weapon development and in promoting the safe and peaceful uses of nuclear technology. Disarmament efforts. Many countries and organizations have worked to advocate for complete nuclear disarmament, considering it the greatest threat to human existence. Despite challenges and setbacks, nuclear arsenals have been significantly reduced since the peak of the Cold War, but thousands of nuclear warheads still exist. Current threats. Challenges remain, including countries still seeking to acquire nuclear weapons, escalating regional tensions, and the risk of nuclear terrorism. The journey towards nuclear disarmament is long and fraught with challenges, as some countries still possess these weapons, and new challenges like nuclear proliferation emerge. But the urgent necessity of preventing nuclear war remains our most pressing collective responsibility, requiring constant vigilance and continuous international cooperation. Humanity's choice: annihilation or survival. The nuclear bomb stands as a stark reminder of humanity's astonishing capacity for both creation and destruction. It forces us to confront deep and uncomfortable questions about the nature of power, the limits of moral responsibility, and the future of our survival as a human species. This power has revealed to us the fragility of our existence and the depth of responsibility that rests upon us. It is not merely a weapon. It is a symbol of a historical crossroads. The choice before humanity is clear. Do we continue to live under the shadow of annihilation, relying on a fragile balance of terror to preserve a false peace? Or do we work together, as one responsible species, to build a future where the power of the atom is harnessed for good, in medicine, in generating clean energy that can solve energy and climate crises, and perhaps one day through nuclear fusion as an inexhaustible energy source, and the threat of nuclear war becomes merely a memory of the past, a black page turned in the book of our history, a lesson we learned about the price of arrogance and the value of cooperation. The challenge posed by nuclear weapons is not merely a political or military challenge. It is fundamentally a moral and humanitarian one. It requires us to think beyond narrow interests and to consider the larger picture of the future of our planet and our coming generations. The future is our choice, and we can choose peace and security, or we can risk sliding into the abyss. It is up to us.